79% of Sri Lanka is rural. So we have focused on the rural housing aspect. Now, up until we assumed office, there was no proper survey conducted as to what the housing needs were in our country. It took us about a year and a half to do a comprehensive survey of all the housing needs. So basically we did a basic housing needs assessment. This was done in an extremely comprehensive manner, where the 9 provinces, 25 districts, 331 divisional secretary areas, 14,022 Grama Seva divisions, which is the lowest level of administration, and we went even down to the micro villages level, which amounts to about 38,000. So taking into account all these layers, we did a very comprehensive survey utilizing the governmental bureaucratic structure, and we now have a basic number to work with. That is, of the 6 million families living in our country, there is a housing need of a variety of sorts, I will explain to you, for 2.5 million families. Now, when I say housing needs of a variety of sorts, by that what I mean is this: some don't have land, don't have their own house, so they live in rented property. Some have land, but no money to finance their house in their own land. Some have their land, but the house is at the foundation level. The others, it comes to the window level. What you call gable wall level, roof level, non-plastered houses, houses without toilets. So this is the basic premise on which we based our survey. So putting all together, there is a need for housing of whatever sorts for 2.5 million. So what we have done right now is use the maximum amount of financial support available through Government of Sri Lanka funding, through Treasury funding, and through funding which we receive from a variety of state and non-state actors, if I may use an international relations word, to support our housing program. So we have the Government of Sri Lanka funding, we have Indian government supporting us with a program, a national program, with specific reference to the Northeast, which is the war-ravaged region of our country. And we also encourage corporate social responsibility programs of various private institutions, financial institutions, those who are involved in private enterprises. So we have institutions that have come and set up villages through their own funding. So those are the basic funding sources, but we don't have adequate funding to cater to all our needs. See, our motto is shelter for all as soon as possible, rather than waiting for years and years and years and having all the time lags that are associated with it. The model which we follow for house building in rural Sri Lanka is a people's participatory program. We help the people build their houses themselves. So it's a participatory program. We do not have tender processes to choose contractors where the contractors build the house and they hand over. This we have found to be a most inefficient methodology in providing housing. Take the tsunami period. We had large numbers of donors, well-wishers, supporters coming and building houses which were not to the expectations of the tsunami victims. Basically because it was the donor that decided the house rather than the recipient. So ours is a recipient-driven program. It's not a donor-driven program. And you had a lot of complaints. For example, the houses were not built according to the required standards. You had complaints regarding the roof, the cement mixtures that were used. Some houses were constructed even without the foundation during the tsunami time period. So we have learned a lesson from that, and we have also learned a lesson from the housing program which was implemented during my father's time period when he was the president and the prime minister. That was for a period of about, roughly speaking, 15 years when he was the housing minister. There, in his first program, it was the government that built houses and handed over to the people. That was called the 100,000 housing program in the early 1980s. It is there he learned the bitter lesson of the government being a donor of houses rather than being a facilitator of the provision of houses. So when the next two major programs during his time period, which was the Million Housing Program and the 1.5 million housing program, he realized the importance of the government acting not as the construction institution but as the facilitation institution, providing technical support, financial support, but people themselves build the houses. So it was a people participatory program. It is that particular model that we follow right now in our housing program.
So the land is owned by the people already? Do they have full title on the land? Or?
It all depends on the type of the recipients. As I told you, there are various categories of recipients. I will email you a soft copy and also I will post you a hard copy of the housing survey that was done and a copy that you could use for yourself in order to ascertain the basic statistics. So when the people are landless, the government provides land free of charge. And for the people to construct the houses, we provide part funding. So the government involvement in that particular category is provision of land free of charge and provision of a loan or grant for the low income or for the people in the war impacted areas, loan for others at a very concessionary rate of interest. It amounts to 5% per annum, the loan, which is way below the market lending rates of the private sector institutions and government sector banks. So it's a subsidized interest rate that we provide. So the support that is provided comes in the form of land for the landless and loans stroke grant depending on your income category. And that's how we take care of our people who have the housing requirements. So it's a variety of sorts. As I said, it could be an incomplete house of a variety of sorts. It could be some minor completion that needs to be achieved. So what I want for my country, part of my visit to Singapore, is to try and approach your institution to facilitate as much funding as possible for the housing requirement. The portion which is not catered to right now because of various financial constraints and funding restrictions, we would like to obtain your support to have a somewhat of a donor financial injection which would speed up the housing program of Sri Lanka.
Minister, it sounds like a lot of the measures right now on the supply side. Is that right? It's about giving land. It's about helping the